Started? Okay. Well, it's been a long time, for a long time since I did a little podcast episode. And I don't want to say I'm back, but whenever you do hear this, I'll be back, I guess. So welcome back to another episode of Behind Closed Doors. I'm your host, Hanifa Griffith. Today I have a very special guest. I always love talking to Alex. I don't know what it is. I feel like we get each other. I really feel like there's a ease whenever I talk to Alex. And I remember we had a conversation, I think it was beginning of this month or ending of last year. We were talking about like our change in like dreams, our change in self. And it really sparked this episode idea because I'm also going through a change, supposed to be graduating in May 2023, which is what? Ooh, that's next month. Let me say it like if it's months away. That's next month. Ooh, child. But yeah, supposed to be graduating next month. Um, but dreams are changing. And as dreams are changing, it feels like I'm on a roller coaster ride with no seatbelt on, like no blueprints with how to like deal with this, no guidance, and really nobody talking about it. I feel like when people change or change their direction in life, it feels like they do it underground and then they pop up and they're like, oh hey, I'm doing this. So this episode is meant to showcase the behind closed doors of
Yes.
the changes that happen. And yeah, Alex and I had this conversation. I was like, of course, I would love to have Alex to talk about this. Um, yes, Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. I'm home. Up and out of this podcast once again.
Um,
My name is Alex. I am 23. I'm like, what do I talk about today? I feel every time I've been here, I have like a different dream in mind or a different location or a different idea about what I'm gonna do, who I have been. So today I'm just Alex. That's my at doesn't act at just Alex today. Because of that, honestly. I'm a creative, also in graduate school for mental health counseling right now. Trying to make sense of what that means. Um, but I'm a little over halfway through. So yeah, that's me right now.
mm. Man, you just said, oh yes, how you said today you're just Alex and it changes every time you come on.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to talk about that. Um, I don't know how to ask this question. I guess the first thing I'll ask is how do you deal with change? How do you welcome change? Or yeah, how do you deal with change?
Yeah. In my close circles, people always get surprised when I say this, but I don't enjoy change. Like I'm not a fan. We're like not really friends, but like I understand that she's coming. I understand that she has to come, and like I guess I invite that in that way. But in terms of my emotions towards change, I often don't enjoy it. I think it's fine, but um, I feel like I am very flexible, almost too flexible sometimes.
Mm.
And I know how to adjust and make things work and roll with the punches. But that just comes out of if I don't do that, then what am I doing? Like I'm gonna have to do roll with change. But in terms of my relationship to change, I often have a hard time, I think, enjoying that process.
Is there like a particular thing in terms of change that you don't enjoy?
Um, I think one of the things about change is that for me, it doesn't always like include like the self-care package
Mm.
in the process. Like I have to make sure I'm thinking about that because if I just try to go through change and especially okay, because there's change that like I want to make, that I want to invite, and then there's change that like happens against my will, you know. And I think it's more about the change that happens against my will that I don't enjoy. Obviously, that's kind of self-explanatory, but in that process of things changing without my control or things, I don't know, it's a control thing too. I don't like to think that I'm that kind of person, but I think I struggle with my sense of control a lot. And I don't like not being the main pilot sometimes, you know?
You know, I know. I would 100%.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, even like with the introduction that I said before, even thinking about school, like we're both international students. So
Yes.
once school is done, it looks different to than domestic students. I feel like for us, when we graduate, we have to think 20 steps ahead.
Yes.
So we have to calculate any misstep that could happen. So then when you talk about like involuntary change, I feel like that's where we live in as international students. I feel like we always live in a constant state of involuntary change, because whatever we go through is never us being the catalyst for that.
Yes.
Like for example, when we graduate, we have to think about a job. If we apply to 100 jobs and they don't answer us back, it's like now you have to change path because they aren't doing, like they aren't giving you the acceptance letter that you need in order to like push past. Yeah, so when you said that, I was like, yeah.
Yeah. And like to that point, this is probably one of the most like present talk chats we're doing, because it's literally what we're going through right now. But in the midst of like seeing graduation next year, potentially, hopefully, like there's like a clear path that's set like on paper through the program, but because that set path isn't necessarily like 100% secure, just by sake of like the documentation and the like the legalness around being international, and I'm not promised a job just because I finished a program, you know? And so since last year, I've been mentally kind of preparing for different options just in case this one doesn't work out. Because as they say, don't put eggs in one basket, you know? And so I find myself now preparing myself for different things I can do that will like use what I've learned, or maybe not even use what I've just used my bachelor's, or just use, like, just so because I'm trying to prioritize other things than just doing what I love, which already feels like kind of like a self betrayal sometimes, for the sake of just wanting to exist in the States. So lately I've been doing a lot of plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that takes up so much energy,
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. But then if I don't do that and I just say I'm gonna do plan A because I believe enough in plan A, and if it doesn't work out, it's gonna be on me. It's gonna be my fault. I didn't do enough. I didn't try hard or whatever, So it's like you can't really win sometimes with this whole thing. And it's like I feel like I have to prepare like almost several different dreams just in case like most of them don't pan out, and it's not very fun.
It's not. It's, as you said, it's exhausting.
Yes.
It is. On the point that you just said, self-betrayal. When you said that, of course, with everything that you said just now, it feels like when you don't pursue the dream that you had when you first came up to the States, that to me right now feels like self-betrayal.
Yeah.
Because as you, I'm going to school for therapy, love therapy, been in love with the idea of helping people, been in love with making resources accessible, even down to this podcast. Like, this is me using, stuff that I've done in school to, bring it to general audience. But then when you think about as you said, preparing dream A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it becomes exhausting to the point where the dream that you once had is no longer the dream that you even want to pursue, because the exhaustion that you feel preparing for that dream is like, why am I even, reaching for that?
Yeah.
But I guess like how I want to say, how do we even begin to think about the change in dreams? But I feel like that's such a big ask,
I know.
you know? Hmm. Damn, as I'm thinking about, that's such a big ask. Like, how do I want to say this?
I mean, it reminds me of a situation I was in recently.
Mm.
I'm gonna get your take on it too, but I was recently in an Uber and we had like a detour. So it was gonna take like half an hour, but it ended up taking like an hour to get where I was going. And this man in the car, because I did a little like weekend little getaway. I was, let me get away from life. It's too much. I'm getting too like hyper focused on getting things right and getting this plan together. I need to just take a break. So I went on to take this break, and I'm in this car, and this man is like, he asked what I was doing like with my life, and I was like, oh, in school to be a therapist. He was like, he was from Africa. He didn't say where, but he was like, oh, okay. So he was very like non for it. He was like, if my friends want to pay someone to talk to them, they can just pay me. Rah, 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 rah. And then he started asking me like what my 5-year plan was. And then I told him how like I don't really have one right now. And he was like, Alex, at this point, I guess now we're friends. He was like, Alex, I'm scared for you. I am scared for you. And I was like, who is this man? So he told me how he's scared for me and how I have to be this lion and I have to be strong and I have to, just be like especially he's like, especially the black men have to be the ones to like to know what to do and go for it. You don't have to wait for society to rah rah rah. And I looked at him and I was like, sir, that's all nice and dandy, but like I'm not invested in all that. I'm like, I'm trying to be the cub. Like, what happened to being what happened to be taken care for, living the soft life? Like every time I be this lion, I'm not about that. And I was like, I said part of why I don't have a 5-year plan right now is because I'm just in such a moment where I'm so caught up in how many doors aren't in my control to open or close. I can be the best I can be. GPA can be on point, but that doesn't mean that like doors get open for me or I'm gonna get this at a certain time. And I don't feel I didn't tell him this, but it gets kind of, it's spiritual for me too, because it's like I'm not that big in the world, like I'm very small and I'm not like like I think my faith can move stuff, right? Like that's what I believe. But at the same time, like I'm humble enough to know that like I'm on a certain path that's just set for me. I don't have to do that much to like move mountains myself, But I told him that I'm more invested in feeling my way to what I want, but also in 5 years, I know how I might want to feel. It may look different because the world is going to give me what the world wants to give me with the deck that I have in my hand, my cards that I've been dealt. And I'd rather be striving for how I want to feel in 5 years than how I want to show up and the role I want. That's not really important, That's just a name someone made up for their tax sheets, and you know what I mean. Like I don't know. I'm more invested in something bigger than that, But I think in the moment talking to him about it, I felt very dumb. I'll be honest. I didn't feel, because I was in a room that like was receiving that. He was very much like, all right, whatever. But I wonder, like for you, like where does that kind of land for you right now in terms of striving for how you want to feel,
Oh, that lands. Wow. The reason why I'm saying is because like I've been thinking about this a lot. It lands very heavily on me right now because how I feel, how I want to feel in 5 years doesn't match where I am right now.
Right.
And of course, some people might be thinking, well, of course, it's 5 years from now, that's going to be then, this is going to be now. But I feel like in order for me to get where I want to feel, I have to change how I'm doing things right now. But also knowing that changing what I'm doing right now feels like I'm giving up something. And I don't know what
Yes.
that something is as yet, but I've been going through a lot of grievance or grief, I should say, because I feel myself not fitting into the mold that I planned for myself 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like if you had asked me in what 20 when I graduated 2019, oh no, 2015, what I wanted to do in 2019, that would have been okay, being a therapist, being a licensed therapist, having clients, whatever the case is. But now that I'm, well past that 2019 mark, as I was trying to get to that feeling, things changed somehow. And now it's like I'm giving up parts of myself that I thought was like a foundational part of myself.
Mm.
So it's like I'm grieving parts of myself whilst also striving for that feeling that I want to feel in 5 years. But what is also very heavy is like trying not to allow the opinions of others around me to influence how to get to that feeling.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things like parents. I don't know how to say this without like giving out my business, but like right now I feel like I have to take care of my parents in a way that I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
So it's like it makes me feel like if me myself, I'm a parent right now. That's what I feel like. I feel like I have to forfeit or sacrifice things in order to make sure that this group of people is okay. But then I think to myself, and my friend was just telling me about this. I went to New York recently to visit some family. Um, and one of my friends was like, kind of, you have to think about you. Like, yeah, you can think about parents and yeah, you can think about friends, but at the end of the day, this is your life. And as she said it, I was like, girl, please lower your volume. It's so loud. Like, let's
Yeah.
it down. But yeah, that's how you really have to think about it, because if you don't think about yourself, at the end of the day, you're gonna be like, I guess, frustrated with the people who you think held you back. Don't know how I got to this point, but yeah, it feels very heavy. It feels like I'm going through these stages of grief without actually losing someone physically.
Yes.
And I don't know how to move within that feeling.
Yes.
And I find myself using my phone a lot. I find myself distracting myself a lot because I don't know how to grieve. And I think that also comes with like the idea of change, because this change was very involuntary. I mean, it was like half, but the involuntary part felt a lot more heavy. Um, so yeah, I think that's where it is at right now.
Yeah, that grief you're talking about, almost like you mentioned also like this kind of sacrifice and the grief from almost sacrificing like some of your wants and some of your desires. Like for me, that word has been compromise.
Mm,
And that's been on my heart a lot lately.
mm,
As I create each plan A, B, C, D, E, F, like something has to get compromised. And that's what I'm frustrated with lately, is that, I can't have it all. And that used to be something I got power from, because one of my major I have this like mental campaigns. I don't know what to call that, but certain mantras or certain things I like. A really early one for me when I was like going to college especially back to parents, when I was trying to tell my parents I didn't want to be a doctor, like a medical doctor, it was the idea of like this potential, right? Like we have the potential to do anything we want to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do everything we can do. You know, like, and that was a really big lesson for me even before I started my psych program, was just like, potential doesn't always mean that I have to do everything I have the potential for, you know? And then the task on me is being able to focus in on what I actually want to do, you know, or what I feel like is my calling or purpose, right? But lately, I think because I'm in the face of like, okay, you're at this point in your life, in this point in the program, you should be making up a couple of different ideas of what you can do, where you can be placed, what might give you the visa, what might X, Y, and Z. I'm having to now tap back into my wider potential that for so long I trusted I didn't need to do as much.
Yeah.
I was following my heart so much all to college, and following my passions and staying focused on that, and just the ebb and flow of, but now I feel like I'm going back to this place where I have to like, okay, what's my skill set? What are my soft skills? What are my hard skills? What are my like, and I just don't know what to do with that. I'm not realizing that until this moment, just like how I've been having to go back on certain things that I told myself I wasn't gonna do as in my experience as a human growing up and becoming an adult and doing this stuff. And so I think that's been hard for me, is like opening up back up my potential, which doesn't sound like it should be a bad thing, but I think I created some CBT stuff. I created some kind of core beliefs in there along the way that now I'm having to kind of like rethink, you know, some ideas I have around potential and what am I compromising? Like, because at a time it didn't matter because in college, like, it didn't matter like if something was that much money or whatever. It wasn't really my problem. It was future Alex's problem. But now it's Alex's problem. Like, now Alex needs to really figure out like, okay, but if you want to paint pictures all day, that might not bring in the money to make you to eat food every day. So it's like, okay, let's really like think about this and be quote unquote realistic. But that's where kind of like this grief for me comes, of like letting go of certain dreams that I just want to live in and not think about it. But the world is very real, and we are not for different reasons, like we're at the margins of the world, of the society. And so it's like, opportunities are harder to get, and doors are just, you know, in places that you can't even reach, you know, sometimes. And it's hard. So I think I'm at this place where I'm compromising a lot and trying to open back up my potential, but it's not in the way that I feel like is very heart-centered. You know,
it feels like, no, go on, sorry.
Yeah, it just feels more like I'm just like an opportunist, and I hate that feeling of like, I just want what's gonna want me, and I hate that. I hate that feeling, because I'm not that person in my personal life, in my relationships. But I feel myself trying to open myself back up to like in society, looking for what wants me, or looking for who's gonna take me, who's gonna, you know, and I do not like that feeling at all.
Does it feel like, I drew this little thing, hopefully you can see it. When he's talking, I don't know if you can see something right there.
Yes.
This is what we've been focusing on for so long. But now that, as you said, like opening up yourself back to potential, is like you're going back into, I don't want to call it a black hole, but essentially a black hole.
Yeah.
Because now you have to like create a web of all the things that might be a path for you, and then try to think, okay, maybe I can do this or maybe I can do that. But as you said, like we came in following our hearts, following what made our hearts smile. So now that we have to, I guess, broaden that scale, to me that's so unfair. Like, if I'm being quite honest, it feels very unfair to think that, and I don't know if it's because of the location, because of course we are not home, we're not in our home island. So we have to like change parts of ourselves.
Yes.
Not only to survive, but also like, and also like to also have some aspects of our dreams still being obtained. But it's hard because the rules and the limitations that are placed against us, it's like, how could you tell me my dream that I want is not obtainable just because I'm not from here?
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the things too, when you say like opening up, I think that is one aspect of it that I don't even know, like hurts, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
It does. Mm. But how do you like in terms of opening yourself back up to the potential of Alex, I guess. How has that process been? I think you touched on it a little bit, but like how has it been, opening
Yeah.
up?
You know what it is? You watched Everything Everywhere All at Once
Love
with
it.
Michelle
Yep,
Yeoh.
movie. Mm-hmm.
So that movie, I watched it twice now,
Mm-hmm.
and that that idea has been on my mind a lot. Just like if you did one thing differently, or if someone else chose something differently, like if Michelle Yeoh, the mom, like if her father decided she couldn't go to the US with her man, because she wanted to go and he let her go, but like what if he chose for her life that she couldn't go? That would have changed her path together too, all this stuff. And it's like lately I've been having these kind of deja vu flashbacks of different moments that I've chosen to do something, or moments that people have chose for me, and just thinking about where that would have taken me.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a time that, and this feels even less secure, but there was a time that right before I chose to do psychology in high school, I went to my parents and I wanted to go to college for screenwriting.
Mm.
And it took a weekend in that house from Friday to Monday. By Monday, I was back to being a biology major. However you all think that happened in a Caribbean household, fill in the blanks. But I think about that a lot for the past couple of weeks. Just like, what if I was like 10 toes? Because I really wasn't.
Mm.
I was maybe 6. And 2, what if my parents were having a good day that day and they were like, or I don't know, maybe because there are times that in the future when I had to start the fight for psychology, but once I got psychology and I was in college and doing stuff, my mom would have friends who her friends would be like, oh, that's a good one, that's a good degree. And
Mm.
she would feel comforted. And it's like, I felt like that was God, like, looking out for me. Because I fought so hard for this path, and now he's going to send people in her life to like affirm my choices, which was like, I don't have to do all that because my parents will not believe me. Me saying it is like, okay, whatever. But someone that they know from outside situation, the third party, is gonna feel better for them sometimes too. But yeah, dealing with the process has been a lot of that, a lot of going back and thinking about what if I was a little bit more arrogant about this, or what if I didn't take no for an answer then, or what if I took someone's advice? Because I don't always take people's advice, you know what I mean? And so it's hard, but to your point earlier, it's not even be related to your question, but to your point earlier about like loved ones and stuff, when you want to change your dream, or when your dream has to change, people who you're bringing along on that journey with you also have to be updated. And I think that's all what makes it difficult too.
Yes.
Because my parents are like, literally the other day were like, you fought real hard for this therapist little gig.
Alex.
And in their mind, they're thinking if you listened to us 10 years ago, you would have been set. And I'm like, the math's not mathing there. Because again, I would have had to want to do that. But whatever. You know what I mean? Like, but it brings up a lot. And it's not that, oh my gosh, I woke up today and I want to be something different just because. No, life is demanding that I make some adjustments. Yep. And so I have to go back and go to these people and say, hey, I'm changing this, or let's look into this instead. And they're like looking at me like sideways, because it has been their resources and their money and their everything to help me get to where I am, just to watch me be in the middle of my own pivot, and there's a lot of dynamics there, with me and my future, me and my past, me and the people that have been with me to get there, and their perspective on what my past and future can look like. It's too much sometimes, Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with all that.
Alex, that 2 points that you made just now. One, how you said first how you said updating those people who have been on those paths about your dreams. Oh, baby, let me tell you something. That point right there, I'm going through that right now. And it is rather rocky.
Yes.
As you said, you've sold them on this dream of like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, da 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 da. You're telling them the whole, storyline, the script, the scene, act one, take two, everything. You're telling them, and they're like on board, like they're riding with you on this dream. You had a little obstacle here and there, and you tell them, no, I'm still gonna pursue this dream. But then, as you said, when you're in the middle of your own pivot, how do you tell those people who you've been riding with for years now that now we're going to make a little 180? And then it becomes you trying to make space for that feeling of that pivot, but also you making space for their pivot as well.
Yes.
And then it's like, how do you manage both of them? Because and that's the thing, like before you tell people about a pivot, you know about the pivot coming.
Right.
You feel the lack of attachment to a dream. You feel yourself, not being as enthusiastic about this dream anymore. And by the time you tell people about the pivot, you've already come to like acceptance. But now they are going through their own denial, betrayal, whatever the case is, forms of grief. And it's like you have to watch them spiral while you're like kind of coming down on your spiral, but then their spiral kind of affects your spiral. So it's like this, I guess, wave or like roller coaster of emotions that you have to now, I guess, account for. But yeah, that point right there, I feel you so heavily because before I changed or in the process of changing what I want to do, I had sleepless nights. I had times I was crying. I had times where shit didn't make no sense.
Yeah.
But I came to that realization first before I even told my parents, and then to see them react to it, it then makes you start to question, like, should I be changing? Should I just tough it out and thing? But then it's like, are you gonna sacrifice your heart and what you feel? Because as we go back to like how you want to feel in 5 years, are you gonna sacrifice that feeling for this? And I think that's where it also becomes hard. It's like which one, or as you said, like, are you gonna stay 10 toes down for that feeling? Basically.
Yeah.
Are you gonna stay 10 toes down for who you want to feel like in 5 years without, or not even without, with those people around you going through that emotion? And I don't have an answer for that because right now I'm battling to have 10 toes down. I'm really battling, but it's like I know how I want to feel. And I'm striving to feel that way. So when you said that, yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you think in terms of like the idea of pivoting to what is it you said? I don't even know what question I want to ask, but I know it's about pivoting. How do you feel? Okay, because like when I think about pivot, I think about do you know those things? It spins like a not a Ferris wheel. Is it a Ferris wheel?
Um.
And it has like the things that go up and down.
Oh yes, the merry-go-round.
Yes,
Yes.
like when I think about a pivot, I think about like environments changing. Like you seeing one thing, but as it's moving along, you're seeing something else. I guess how does Hmm. How do you deal with the pivot of one thing changing to something else? That never makes sense.
Like on an emotional level.
Yeah.
I try, it's not every time. When I'm not caught up in the moment, I try to stay very, very curious.
Hmm.
That's something I learned from somewhere. But I think I try to like, because a lot of the times when I feel frustrated with a new pivot or a change, it's because in my head, I guess I think I knew how it was supposed to go and it's not going that way. So
Hmm.
now I'm trying to readdress me being wrong about something, or my calculations being off or whatever. But if I stay curious, then I'm kind of always in like a student kind of position where it's like, okay, what's coming is teaching me something, or I don't know what's coming because I usually don't. So let's get there and figure out what it is, like staying curious about something. But that's difficult because I feel like sometimes I also need to take on a 10 toes approach and not always, I don't like almost gatekeep, like what I built, and what because so it's a balance. Like I don't really know the answer. It's just intuition. I'll be honest with you. That's kind of the answer I can have right now. Is like I take my intuition has to tell me when to accept a pivot gracefully and when to keep a pivot at the gate and interview it, and it's gonna come anyway. But at least let me try to you know figure it out or wrestle with it. Versus sometimes I think it's easier just to like, all right, whatever. Life's a new day, new pivot. Other days, I think it has to be like okay, I didn't ask for this.
Hmm.
What's all this about?
Mm-hmm.
But it's an intuition thing, and I can't even say how to train that.
Mm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Using that exact same I did like interviewing your pivot, how does that apply in terms of, as we said, we're international students.
Yes.
How does that apply to, or how do you apply that to, us coming to our end and having to think about jobs? Because, we have, jobs saying no left, right, and center.
Yes.
How do you know that when the pivot comes to interview it and when it also comes to to let it come, if that makes sense?
Yeah. It's probably a couple things if I could think about it in the moment. One of them is definitely how it feels.
Mm.
Like even down to like how is this person talking to me about what's happening.
Mm.
Um Also a lot of it is how people that I trust respond to these updates I'm giving them about my pivot. So like my best friend, talk to my best friend, and she's like, okay, I didn't think you'd do that. Or like if someone is surprised I'm doing something that doesn't seem like me, it could be one of two things. One is like I'm acting out of myself, out of my own character, or like I haven't updated them on some of my new interests that I'm developing, my new dreams, right? And that takes the self-awareness. But a lot of it is me checking with my friends about what I'm going through and seeing how they respond to something that's come up or opportunity that's come up. And if they're like, this doesn't look like you, or this feels like you're betraying yourself, or, like, then I know it's a litmus test. I don't follow what they say,
Mm.
but it's definitely one of the signs I follow on top of how it feels when I get the email or how it feels when I read it, or how I feel when I put that next to something else that I want to do, which
Mm.
one feels better. And this all doesn't even seem that right. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is like it's a very intuitive approach of like when something does come, how is it showing up? And how do those around me respond to what is showing up? You know? Yeah.
A good way to gauge, like, especially how you said if you're acting out of character.
Yes.
Um, and immediately what I thought about is, how do I tie this in? Okay, so feel like you have to give backstory before you can even go on, because a lot of people don't know about what we face. But when, we graduate, there's like a 90-day period that we have grace period that we can stay in the States. And that is like the time that you have to look for employment that you could apply for OPT that you can stay here. As you said, acting out of yourself, that made me think of like what I'm going through right now in terms of me choosing not to stay in the States anymore. And it's very much trying to balance, am I acting out of myself, or am I seeing what is happening in front of myself and knowing that I have to pivot because, obstacles that may have arise. As you said, is calling for something different. And people may be listening, why are you always bringing this up? But I feel like nobody is giving us a helping hand in terms of how we feel during this time or what to expect. Because I feel like there's also a fear that comes in with saying no to a dream that you push so hard to come up to these States for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to express that. There was no question in that. I just want people to like, who are listening, who maybe, because I have a lot of people who are like international who listen. So it will be all right. As I am grappling with this pivot, it makes me think, like how you said about, everything everywhere all at once. Even though I may be choosing something else, I have to really know that whatever choice I make is going to get me to how I feel. Once I, keep that in mind, is that feeling in mind. Yeah, I'm gravitating a lot towards that statement that you said, how you feel, because it's like you can't hold on to the things that look good.
Yeah.
Because it's just external things. So yeah, however you feel and whatever you have to get how you feel, I say do it.
Literally, especially because lately, I have not been let's okay. I mean, being real, like I feel like I've already been doing some of that work of like trying on different things I know aren't for me just to feel like I'm gonna get something. And getting rejections from those stuff, I'm like, okay, so I could like betray myself and still get rejected. So why am I gonna waste my time trying to be anybody else but just me and just do what I want to do? And if that fails, then that fails.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather fail at something that I want to do than fail at something I didn't want to do in the first place,
Yes.
And like I heard that's from like I told a friend that recently, my classmates, and he said that was like a Will Ferrell. I want to say hopefully that was the right person, like graduation speech or something. One of those. But yeah, that was his thing. Is like you can fail doing something that you don't really want to do, so you have to just do what you really want to do. And it's so true because we are limited people. The energy is but so much. And like, I don't know, like I want to keep believing that I'm meant for something more and all this great stuff. And like, and I think also it's important to recognize if we're being more, what is that word called? Not strengths focused. Well, like a growth mindset, but like people, whether or not you even get your success or whatever you think is successful, people around you already look up to you in some ways, like as people in the world who are pursuing their dream, even though we don't have our dreams, most of their friends don't. But I get inspired by them every day just because we get up and we try, and that's why I ask for updates and I face them all week with my friends because that keeps me going. Just in case my one girl gets her $2 raise, like we are up there, like, like, because that's all we have right now in these early 20s, a lot of us, is just like the small stuff. And so I think it's important to remember that people are inspired by you trying. And I think that's a big part of my goal in life, not to really inspire people, but to be in a position where people can be inspired. And I've learned that I don't have to really get what I really want at the end of the day. People are inspired today by what I do. And I'm just trying to survive. but people look at what I have to go through as an international student or whatever, and they look and they like really are they have respect for it, and it's like you would think that I have to actually achieve something to garner that, but no, like people are really inspired by just you waking up and saying I'm gonna keep going today, and that's kind of where I'm at. It's really truly at every day at a time, you know, and then hopefully one day like I can sit in some sense of security in that way, but until then, like I have to sit in the security of my relationships that are still looking out for me, you know, and that want to see me win. And it's give us 5 years and we'll let you know how that worked from when this recording was recorded. But that's where I'm at today, is like all we have is
right now
who we're with right now. And we're climbing, you know.
So you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of what you said. It's so funny that wow, I would love to have this conversation 5 years from now, because this conversation reminded me of what you said. I want to say 2 years ago. It's when you were working on your book and you were saying, oh, what did you say? How can I paraphrase? I think you said it was like just one day that's you do one thing towards how you, I think, how did you say it? You do one thing towards the thing that you enjoy. Like each day, just one thing towards that.
Yeah.
So like if you want to write a book, okay, write one paragraph. You know, you just keep on, building those blocks until you eventually.
Yeah. We're still testing out that theory. And it's ongoing. The experiment is ongoing. You know, and we're still here. I had food today. I had class. I'm here. Like we're doing it, you know. But like moments like this even are like help, you know. Like checking in. And I feel like I have a friend right now. I hate doing this. It's such a but I'm not gonna blow her up at all. But she's also an international student, and we've been checking in every couple of months, and lately she's not been as like responsive, and it makes me like a little worried. My birthday had passed, and she said something like it was like she gave me like a Facebook post, and it wasn't even like a text message, and I was like, girl, what's up with you? And it was giving like avoidance of like probably she doesn't have like the best news about her situation, you know. That's kind of my little like sixth sense. And it doesn't feel good, but I feel like I was right there, and probably in February, like last month, you know, when a lot of rejection came my way, and I didn't even have the emotional energy to check in with people about it, just to let them down, and just to, you know, bring doom and gloom, and just to receive their sympathy. It didn't feel worth it to me. And that's why I said, like, I have to be practical about and intentional about who I'm letting in my space to keep eyes on me, you know? Like, we are social creatures, and like we need that. And I feel like I've given the person their space, because I know they have other people in their life that are gonna do that. I'm not gonna be like, you know. But if you have a friend in your life who, you know, you're that friend for them, check in, you know, because sometimes like when we get so caught up in that isolation of like how we feel, like I worry about the choice we'll make in the pivot, you know. That's what's worrying me. It's like, okay, now she's in that place, maybe she feels like she has to make a certain choice in her isolation, her loneliness, which is not, you know, people have to remind you sometimes of your potential, you know, and everything you can do. And I feel like sometimes when we get so hyper like laser focused, every like man is an island, like our own little thing, and then we just get our choices probably do change in that space as well, you know, like mentally, like we don't make the best choices, I think, when we're doing it in that lonely place. I think we make a lot of more compromise than we probably should. And this is all me hypothesizing from her narrative, but I'm just kind of using her as an example, because I've been there too, you know. And I feel like in my loneliness, I've made choices that did not serve me at all. I would make better choices if I at least asked the peanut gallery or let peanut gallery in on what's going on, you know. But we make a lot more darker choices, like in the dark, you know, literally.
When you can't see.
Yeah.
And then you come out of that, it's like, what did I do? No, yeah. Oh man, that one, yeah. Because sometimes you can't even see like beyond the point of um I guess beyond the point of that darkness because you feel like the choice has to be made right there, right then, in order for you to like exit out.
Yes.
And I think that's just what I'm learning is like you can have those points of darkness, but you can hopefully wait out a little bit until the storm clears so you can see some other type of options. Um, because I would hate to think that we only have one option or one way to, pick or maneuver. Um, but it's like holding out. And I also think you said it before, like releasing expectations too. Sometimes
Yes.
that might be one of the biggest things that we have to do is like releasing how we expect to feel when something happens or like when we're going through something. Um, yeah, releasing expectations. I think that's the thing that holds us on a chokehold when we have the expectations of what something may look like, because then we start
Mhm.
chasing how that thing looks like,
Yeah.
you know? Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. I just wish things were so much easier for people who, are pivoting, but it's like, do you believe that you have to have what is this thing? People are always like, you have to have turbulence in your life in order to
You can even finish a sentence. Like
I
I
can because
can.
I'm so over people like telling me like, oh yeah, you have to have this hard time. But why?
Yeah.
But why? Why do I?
Yeah. This isn't even that relevant probably, but I remember like being a child
Hmm.
and being bullied and being like, you know what, like life's gonna be hard now because life's gonna be easy later.
Hmm.
And that's not the truth. They lied to
They
me.
lied.
So like where does this turbulence that we have to go through, what does it give us? What does it promise us?
And I feel like that's every single like elderly, not elder, like
Yeah.
older person that I talk to. They're like, oh yeah, Hannah, like you have to go through this. You have to go through the hard times. I'm like, baby, why? And
Yeah.
well, it builds character. Well, I'm getting character somewhere else. I
Right.
feel
Some
like I'm
character
getting it
now.
somewhere else. Like I don't have to go through this
Ooh.
turbulence to get that
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people say it because it helps make sense of what
Mm.
is the inevitable, which is a life is turbulent, you know? But for those that need a little bit more than that, it doesn't really shake out into anything meaningful.
No.
Um, yeah, I think that people are trying to like make sense of their own turbulence when they say that, you know?
That makes sense. Ish makes sense ish.
Yeah.
Because no. Mm-mm. Do I have any more questions for you? I guess my last question. How would you, from where you're standing right now and what you've been through right now, what are some guiding words that you would give to someone who may be just starting their pivot?
Yeah. I would say, um, in the midst of a pivot, like you don't know who you're gonna become,
Mhm.
but it's important to have that self-awareness of who you are today and who you want to be today. Like, are you that person that you want to be today?
Mm.
Because back to what we said earlier, that's like really all you have is like the present moment, you know? And I don't know if this is everybody has different situation that they're in and whatever. But I know for me, because I can anticipate having to make some choices that are compromising and grieving certain opportunities and whatever, like it just is helpful to remind myself that what I can work on and what I can begin to foster is how I maintain my sense of self and invite change into that as well. Like who I am today is gonna change. I'll meet a different person, whatever. But this journey is gonna be a lot harder if I'm not authentic and honest with myself today, you know? So I just make sure that you're being honest with yourself and that you're authentic to yourself, no matter how people perceive you, or it's all this internal is what I'm trying to talk about, like, because it's so much to navigate in terms of other people, the actual door openers and closers and the man and everybody up there and the systems and all that stuff, right? But like you have your domain and your domain is in you. You're your domain. And so I think making sure that you're being your authentic self to you in the face of the pivot is the best bet you have to make it work. You're just on the other side, but you have to know what's inside of you, Yeah.
And to add on to that, it will also, once you're being yourself, the things that you most desire and you most want to attract, they will find a way to you.
Exactly.
Like they can see you,
Yes.
And I heard something, I think it was on the radio, or no, I was watching, I was listening to Shan Boo Drums. I think it was like one of her recent podcast episode, and she was like, this is legit the question she asked. She said, aren't you tired of wearing that mask all the time? Like, aren't you tired of pretending to be someone that you're not? And I kid you not, as soon as she asked that question, I think she's talking to Becky G. Is either Shan Boudram said it or Becky G said it. One of them said it, and as soon as they said it, legit tears were rolling down my eyes, because it's like you want to hold on to this idea of who you should be in order to get through life, when really, one, you're going to be exhausted, and two, the things that you most desire can't even find you.
Yes.
Everybody else, because you're not perceiving, or you're not portraying yourself to be you. So yeah, definitely be who you are, not who you think you are. I know that there's space for that person.
Yes.
Because
there has to be.
Exactly, there has to be, like, there's no other, no other option, because you're occupying space on this earth, and you can be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That you most want will find you. So yeah, love that point. So this is the end of the episode. I hope you enjoy it. I hope the things that we said resonated. There are other episodes if you would like to peruse and listen to. I'm not sure when I will have a next episode. As I said, life is lifing. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And Alex, do you still, I don't know if I should ask, but do you still have
blow up my spot?
Yep.
Right now, literally over the course of the past 2-3 years, I say something different every time. Before I was doing podcasting, I did some writing, I did this. Lately, I've been on my very like light and giggly mood.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'm just reviewing Drag Race with one of my friends on YouTube. If you want to check that out, you can search Housekeeping on YouTube, but house is spelled Haus. And you can go to my Instagram, TikTok, whatever bio to find that link at Just Alex Today. I want to get bang into my deeper bag, but I've been trying to ebb and flow,
Mm-hmm.
And we get deep on the Drag Race stuff. There's a lot of dynamics. And that's I'm analytical, so we break down some dynamics and stuff like that. But it's mostly having a key and laughing. So it's what I need right now in my life. So my creative work obviously reflects that. But I'm hoping in the second half of the year to get back into some inner work stuff, but I needed to have a laugh for the first half of the year. So
nice little, refresher.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. But I do have a podcast, Tap In Tap Out. It's currently on hiatus. It's doing its own thing, but it's there. Episodes are there. Hanif is there a couple times. Tap In Tap Out podcast, also my Instagram bio. Yeah, if you go my bio on my Instagram, you'll see a list of things that I've I've done. They're seeds. We're planting seeds.
We're planting seeds. And then one day when we look, they're all going to be together.
Yes, one big beautiful tree.
Yeah, and you'll see it and be like, oh my gosh, I remember when he did this. Like,
Yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But stay tuned for
Yeah.
both, this is a, what do they say? Watch the space. I actually don't like people say that. It bugs me. I don't think people, it's so corny, watch the space. But yeah, watch the space because kind of us doing stuff, y'all know. We're excited.
Because you'll see it eventually, but yeah.
But thank you for having me, Hadifa. It's always a pleasure.
I always love having you on my podcast. You didn't even understand. You didn't even understand. I just love sharing this space with you. And every time I have a conversation with you, I kid you not, I will go back and I'll like sit and think about it for hours on end, maybe journal about it some more because you be dropping gems. I'm just like, wow. And you always have a way of like knowing what I'm going through at the time.
It's because I'm there.
You said something, I'm like, damn, Alex, are you living inside of it? But yeah. Yeah, you should definitely check it out. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Leave a comment, leave a little star, leave a little rating, and so forth and so forth. Peace, y'all.